So Donald Trump and his people aren't hiding it anymore. Basically, now they want to take over Venezuela. This is Jason from the All In podcast. He says President Trump should make a significant offer to the people of Venezuela to become the 51st state. Can you imagine the impact of the USA growing our population and geographical footprint through strategic expansion? That's actually what they're talking about. You got other Republican people, right? Wow, the real 51st state, Venezuela. And then you even have Katie Miller, wife of Stephen Miller. She's tweeting Greenland with a USA flag on it. Basically, these people are mustache party people. I don't want to say it. They're talking about colonizing and taking control of other countries. I'm showing you their rhetoric and their language. Rubio then today is asked on national TV, what legal authority do you have to run Venezuela? That's what we're talking about because they want to take over Venezuela. Listen to this.
He said the United States is going to run Venezuela. Under what legal authority?
Well, first of all, what's going to happen here is that we have a quarantine on their oil. That means their economy will not be able to move forward until the conditions that are in the national interest of the United States and the interest of the Venezuelan people are met. And that's what we intend to do. So that leverage remains, that leverage is ongoing, and we expect that it's going to lead to results here. We're hopeful that it does, positive results for the people of Venezuela, but ultimately, most importantly for us, in the national interest of the United States. We will no longer have, hopefully,
right? For the people of Venezuela, but, most importantly, us. And then this is like their messaging from the White House. They say Secretary Rubio, methodologically, schools, fake news, George Stephanopoulos, what are they talking about? Slopanopoulos, who is either stupid, ignorant, or most likely both. Well, I've explained it. I'll do it one more time. Like, they basically are going to try to justify this. Well, Trump and his people said so, therefore we can do it. That's kind of the justification. They're going to argue court order. I'll just say this, guys. Taking over ships is questionable in itself, let alone taking over a country. And sort of what the USA keeps trying to do is basically, hey, these ships are dangerous to us. Oh, is it drugs? Oh, is it oil? Whatever. They keep changing the explanations, and then they try to gaslight you. It's like, oh, don't you care about America? It's kind of what they'll do.
As we move forward here, we'll set the conditions so that we no longer have in our hemisphere a Venezuela that's the crossroads for many of our adversaries around the world, including Iran and Hezbollah, is no longer sending us drug gangs, is no longer sending us drug boats, is no longer a narco-trafficking paradise for all those drugs coming.
So they're just trying to come up with as many explanations as they can. Okay, so first we're talking about oil. Now we're talking about, it's the drugs. Oh, but wait, now we have Hezbollah and terrorism, stuff like that. They're not going to mention BRICS. They're not going to mention Russia. They're not going to mention China. But this is sort of why I show you in the beginning, though. It's like, hey, let's just make this the 51st state, right? So that's their ultimate goal here. Would they actually probably make it a state? Probably not. But do they want to control the oil? Yes, they do. And already Trump is contacting oil companies, basically say, hey, you got to get down there and get the oil. It says here from Politico, Trump admin sends tough private message to oil companies on Venezuela. They've been doing this, I guess, for the last 10 days, having conversations of like, okay, how can we get our companies down there ASAP? Companies are like, yo, if we're going to go down there, you have to guarantee the safety of our employees, which makes sense. And then essentially you got U.S. soldiers on the ground protecting oil assets. That's what this ends up all being. Boots on the ground. This ends up what it ends up all being. And I'll just say this, guys, there's a reason why you put out, things like, I'll give you an example, the movie Dune, if you know this movie. Some people think, oh, this is all, fantasy, fighting over the spies and, who are the Fremen going to be, who's the emperor, these kind of things. And I just mentioned that kind of stuff because I just want you to think about those kind of scenarios. If you just want to talk about the real world, we can, and Dune is a reflection on that. You can, how did it go in Iraq when they told you it was going to be so easy? We welcome as liberators, etc. This is the kind of stuff that we get involved in, and they don't hide it. That's why I show you guys in the beginning, like they want to take over the oil, right? I don't know what else to say. And listen to some more what Rubio has to say here.
Coming out of Colombia to going through the Caribbean and towards the United States. And obviously we want a better future for the people of Venezuela. We want them to have an oil industry where the wealth goes to the people, not to a handful of corrupt individuals and stolen by, pirates all over the world. That's what
That's rich coming from us as we're basically doing pirate activities, chasing down oil tankers and these things. Now, guys, here's the thing about that stuff. It is very questionable because he's going to mention court orders, because if the ships were in U.S. waters, like right on our border, sure, the U.S. has authority to do whatever they want if there's like, okay, what's on your ship, that kind of stuff, right? But like we're like trying to chase down ships basically right next to Venezuela. There's a very questionable things that we're doing here. You could argue that we're totally pirates here, and already got protests from China and Russia. I also want to make it clear, because people, basically they're racist. I'll be frank with you guys. Oh, because Chris is Asian, he must be Chinese. He must be supporting whatever party there. Just a bunch of nonsense, guys. I just don't want any international conflict anywhere. I actually do want what's best for the Venezuelan people, but want Venezuelan people to actually choose who they want as leader and choose for their system. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. This idea that the USA needs to come in and run things, though, I completely reject. Plus, we're spending lots of U.S. tax dollars, and the USA can't even run their own country if you look at the chaos that Trump has created.
What we're working towards, and we intend to use the leverage we have to help achieve that.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Well, I explained to you what our goals are and how we're going to use the leverage to make it happen. As far as what our legal authority is on the quarantine, I'm very simple. We have court orders. These are sanctioned boats, and we get orders from courts to go after and seize these sanctions.
So, the idea would be, oh, well, we have our laws in USA, and because we made our decree in USA, therefore we're going to use that on international waters and on another country, which obviously is two separate things, right? So this is where it's just basically gaslighting you. He doesn't really answer the question, because honestly, guys, if you want a better Venezuela for Venezuelans, let Venezuela decide. I want to make that clear.
I don't know, is a court not a legal authority?
So is the United States running Venezuela right now?
Well, I've explained once again, I'll do it one more time. What we are running is the direction that this is going to moving forward. And that is, we have leverage. This leverage we are using and we intend to use. We started using already.
When you start talking like that, we have leverage. So we've got the Navy, we've got a bunch of guns, we've got ships. So therefore we make the law. That's how I hear it when he says that we've got leverage, right? Or, we're going to make it so Venezuela can't sell anything and we're going to take over your oil industry. I mean, this stuff is absolutely backcrap crazy.
Can see where they are running out of storage capacity. In a few weeks, they're going to have to start pumping oil unless they make changes. And that leverage that we have with the armada of boats that are currently positioned allow us to seize any sanctioned boats coming into or out of Venezuela, loaded with oil or on its way in to pick up oil. And we can pick and choose which ones we go after. We have court orders for each one.
So again, if it's not clear already, we're the bad guys here, okay? I also want to make it clear, it doesn't necessarily mean that Maduro is a good guy, right? It could be a scenario where everyone's a bad guy. I mean, it is just an unfortunate situation to where if only a few people at the top control everything, the actual, people on the ground, just your regular people, don't really benefit that much at all. So don't think that having Rubio run Venezuela is going to be much different than Maduro. If they were actually serious about the people of Venezuela self-determining their own future, they'd be talking about elections, or they'd be talking about, hey, we don't recognize Maduro. The other party, the opposition party, won the election. We're going to figure out how to get that. But they're not talking about that stuff at all. They're talking about running Venezuela, and we have a bunch of guns. That's basically what their argument comes down to. Listen a bit more here.
Will continue to be in place until the people who have control over the levers of power in that country make changes that are not just in the interest of the people of Venezuela, but are in the interest of the United States and the things that we care about. That's what we intend to do. The legal authority is the court orders that we have.
When the president was asked yesterday who will be running Venezuela, he said it was you. He said it was the defense secretary. He said it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Are you running Venezuela right now?
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. So that is a Department of War operation, conducting in some cases.
You get the idea. That's how he talks. I also want to address this. So some people say, well, Chris, I'm from Venezuela. Don't you celebrate Venezuela's and freedom and stuff like that? So this is actually a pro-Maduro protest. Okay, so there's going to be people in Venezuela who are like, yo, I want to keep Maduro. Okay, I want to show you that there's some people like that. There's also going to be some people, and this is what the right wingers are showing you. But what about the people in New York City who are protesting to remove Maduro? They're all cheering and happy. Sure, there's going to be some people doing that. But this is ultimately a decision of them. And don't think that every single Venezuelan's are exactly the same. They're not. Everyone's going to have different interests in these kind of things, right? So these people may, hey, you know what? If my people get in power, maybe I'm the richer Venezuelans. I live in New York City. And then I can go back to, being part of the top 1% or whatever, right? There's going to be different interests with this stuff. And this is also a real thing because sometimes people say, Chris, you're so dumb, right? It is all about the people. I just saw people do X. Now, let me read a description of this because it can be all over the map of what people are doing and why. Listen to this. So this is from the Financial Times headline. We will not be anyone's colony. Venezuelan's government seeks to reassert control. Okay, so I think that is a reasonable statement from the government there, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a great government, but does anyone want to be anyone's colony? Now, when you listen to the description of this, though, let me just read it, and let's just make your own determination. This is from Financial Times. It says, protests supporting the abducted strongman emerged. Near Miraflores, demonstrators chanted, quote, give Maduro back. Okay, so they want Maduro. And wielded signs warning the government, whoever ends up leading it, not to make any deal with Washington. Okay, so this would be a protester. Don't make a deal with Washington. But listen to this. Quote, not one drop of Venezuelan oil for the USA until we get Maduro back, read one hastily scrawled placard. And here's a description also. Men wearing civilian clothes and wielding assault rifles looked on. Okay. So how do you read that? and I just want you to read how complicated and messed up this whole thing can get, right? People standing around with guns. Are we threatening someone? Who are we threatening? Could be any number of things. But what ends up happening, though, ultimately, you got a bunch of groups fighting for and grabbing for power, right? And is that necessarily our role in there saying, hey, but we have the most power because we have the most guns. And it's just like rule of the jungle or law of the jungle kind of stuff. Listen to some more here. This is Representative Becca Balint. I believe this is from Vermont. Listen to what she has to say.
This is dangerous, not just because of what this will mean for Venezuela in the region. It matters for our moral standing in the world. What does this mean for Taiwan? That we believe that we can go in and do regime change, that we can arrest a leader and kidnap them essentially and drag them to the United States. What does that mean for Ukraine? This matters not just in this instance, but what it means globally. And this is not what Americans want. They voted for this president in part because he said he was not interested in more foreign wars. And this runs completely counter to what he ran on.
And I also want to make this stuff clear, right? We can argue about, who's going to be the best candidate, who's the best president for Venezuela, et cetera. But my opinion is ultimately they should decide, right? But the USA, like literally from our own language, we're going to go there because it's in our best interest and that kind of stuff. It's really, arrogant kind of language to use. This is Ralph Nader. I want to hear his point of view on this. Ralph Nader says, dictator Donald Trump has now started the Venezuelan quagmire. He declared today that he and his cohorts at the Department of State and Defense are going to, quote, run Venezuela until there is a transition to peaceful prosperity. There is going to involve U.S. soldiers in the oil fields and U.S. oil companies, right? Nader's saying the same thing I'm telling you guys. It's not that hard to figure out, though. There will be protests all over Venezuela, and there will be every possibility for chaos and disintegration of that beleaguered country. Trump has been accused of not knowing much about history. He just showed it. Does he remember Iraq? Does he remember Libya? Does he remember the fiasco in Afghanistan? Does he remember the war in Vietnam, during which time he was a draft dodger? Obviously not. He glories in the moment of lighting bombings, but as Harry Truman once said, the buck stops with the president, and he's going to be immersed in the coming days in the forces he cannot control. And I understand if you go through all this stuff with the mocking people say, oh, but Chris, you must hate freedom. Oh, you must hate freedom. It's like, what are you guys even talking about? I mean, I thought we were supposed to be America first. I actually believe that the USA should invest in their own people. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. If I say anything crazy, let me know. I think the USA should invest in their own people. And I've told you guys several times before, education, infrastructure, healthcare, these kind of things. At the moment, there's just a lot of really angry people in the USA for lots of different reasons. And the way the system has it has you all fighting for each other. You're basically on the Hunger Games, Squid Games every single day, fighting for each other because in your mind, you're thinking there's limited resources, only a certain amount of the pie there, and we have to fight for that pie. People aren't asking like, hey, why is the system's completely lopsided? Why is the wealth gap is just growing, right? And then people like Elon Musk and Trump are just laughing at you, and it's sad. And I look at this stuff from the the Trumpy people type things, and there's like, oh, we're gonna own the libs, like it's like, okay, so that's your plan then. I guess we want to live in the Thanos world. Maybe half the people get something, the other half don't. But it's end up not being like that. It's going to end up being more like the top 1% get stuff and everyone else doesn't, as your institutions fall apart. And when they destroy education, even having these discussions with you guys, I'll just be frank with you guys, it's sad. Most Americans can't understand what I'm saying because the education just isn't there anymore, and it's really just about guns and anger. And the Republicans, they speak the language to that kind of people. Hey guys, we got the power, we got the guns. Therefore, we can take control of everything. And that's just like what it ends up being. It's ludicrous and it's sick. And I get it. And then you worship the billionaires, right? This Jason guy. Oh, great, 51st state. So I just wanted to just take your time with this. If you have to pause the video to read stuff I'm showing you, ask yourself, like, is that your goal in life? Do you want to take over Venezuela? Do you want to take over Greenland? Think about times in history where countries like Japan or Germany is like, you know what? We got to create a safer hemisphere for our country. We got to go take over the other countries. Listen to yourselves. And I'll catch you in the next video.